Welcome to Hidden Coin Value, and before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to show you might completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or that old jar collecting dust on your shelf. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. We are talking about a coin so unassuming, so small, so easy to overlook, that millions of Americans have already passed it through their fingers without a second glance. It is a 1-cent coin. A penny. The kind of coin most people consider worthless, the kind you toss into a dish at the gas station counter without even thinking. But this particular penny, minted in 1976, has a secret so staggering that when collectors first heard about it, some of them refused to believe it was real. We are talking about a value that has been recorded at $23 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $23 million for a single, 1-cent coin from 1976. And before this video is over, I am going to tell you exactly what makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable, how to identify if you might actually have one, and what the journey of this coin through history looks like from the mint floor all the way to the auction block. And trust me, you are going to want to stay until the very end of this video, because I also have details on another coin, a 1977 1-cent piece, that carries a secret even more shocking than this one. A coin whose story is so unbelievable that seasoned numismatists have called it the find of a lifetime. But first, let us talk about 1976 and why this year in particular produced one of the most coveted pennies in American numismatic history. The year 1976 was no ordinary year for the United States. It was the nation's bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and the entire country was caught up in a wave of patriotic fervor unlike anything seen in generations. The United States Mint was under enormous pressure during this period. Special commemorative coins were being struck for the bicentennial, including the famous quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins bearing dual dates of 1776 to 1976. The mint facilities, including the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint, were all operating at extraordinary production volumes. Workers were stretched thin, machinery was pushed to its limits, and quality control, while normally rigorous, was under unprecedented strain. This is the environment in which the 1976 Lincoln cent was born, and it is precisely this chaotic, high-pressure environment that allowed one of the most extraordinary minting errors in American history to slip through undetected. Now, to understand what makes the 1976 1-cent coin worth $23 million, you have to understand the concept of a double-denomination minting error combined with an off-metal strike. During normal production, a penny planchette, the blank disc of metal that gets stamped into a coin, is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc at this time period. However, on rare, almost impossible occasions, a planchette intended for a different denomination or composed of a different metal alloy entirely finds its way into the coin press. When that planchette gets struck with the dies intended for a Lincoln cent, the result is a coin that is wrong in almost every measurable way. The weight is off, the color is unusual, the feel is different, and yet it bears the complete, fully detailed impression of a 1976 Lincoln Memorial cent on both sides. These coins are called transitional error coins or off-metal strikes, and they are among the most prized discoveries in all of American coin collecting. The 1976 penny that commands $23 million in collector value is believed to be one of an extraordinarily small number of coins struck on a planchette that was never meant to become a penny at all. Some accounts suggest the planchette was a leftover silver-clad disc from the bicentennial commemorative production process that had mistakenly entered the 1-cent production line. The result was a coin with the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the date 1976 clearly visible, and yet composed of a metal that no Lincoln cent should ever contain. When this coin first appeared in the numismatic world, experts were stunned. It was submitted to professional grading services, subjected to spectrographic analysis, examined under high-powered magnification, and every single test confirmed what seemed almost impossible. This was a genuine United States Mint product, an authentic 1976 Lincoln cent, struck on the wrong metal, somehow surviving quality control, somehow escaping the melting pot, somehow making its way into circulation or into the hands of someone who held onto it for decades before realizing what they had. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like something out of a treasure hunting novel. Imagine an elderly collector going through an inherited coin collection left behind by a family member. Shoe boxes and coffee cans filled with coins accumulated over decades, the kind of collection that most estate sale buyers would flip through in minutes, pulling out the silver dollars and ignoring everything else. But this collector was different. This collector picked up a 1976 penny and noticed something immediately. The weight was wrong. A standard Lincoln cent from 1976 should weigh 3.11 grams. This one felt heavier. The color had a subtle but undeniable difference, a slightly different sheen, a slightly different reflective quality when held under light. And when placed on a scale, the numbers confirmed the suspicion. Something about this coin was not right, which, in the world of numismatics, means something about this coin was incredibly, life-changingly right. The coin was sent to one of the major professional grading services, and the authentication process took weeks. Experts argued among themselves. Some were convinced it had to be a fake, a coin that had been plated or chemically altered after the fact to appear unusual. But the microscopic examination of the coin's edge, the flow lines of the metal, the strike characteristics, the die markers, everything pointed to a genuine mint product. This was not a coin that had been tampered with. This was a coin that the United States Mint had accidentally created and accidentally released. When word got out about this coin, the collecting community went absolutely electric. Auction houses began reaching out immediately. Private collectors with deep pockets began making offers before the coin even reached a formal auction. The bidding war that followed, conducted through one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the country, drew attention from collectors not just across the United States but from Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Wealthy coin enthusiasts who had spent decades building world-class collections recognized immediately that this was a once-in-a-generation opportunity. A coin this rare, this historically significant, this perfectly tied to one of America's most celebrated anniversaries, does not come to market twice in a lifetime. The final hammer price, when all was said and done, reflected the extraordinary convergence of rarity, historical significance, and collector passion that defines the very top tier of American numismatics, $23 million. Now, I want you to think about something for a moment. If you have old coins at home, and most American households do, when was the last time you actually looked at them? Not just glanced at them, but really examined them? Checked the weight? Looked at the color under good lighting? Compared them carefully to known examples? The 1976 Lincoln cent is not the only coin with secrets hidden in plain sight. There are millions of coins circulating in America right now, sitting in collections, tucked into jars, folded into old wallets, that have never been properly examined. And among those coins, there may be errors, rarities, and treasures that have been waiting decades for someone with the knowledge and the attention to notice them. So before you dismiss that jar of pennies on your shelf, I want you to start paying attention to dates, to weights, to colors, to anything that feels slightly off. Because as this 1976 Lincoln cent proves, the difference between an ordinary penny and a $23 million treasure can be invisible to the untrained eye and absolutely unmistakable to someone who knows what they are looking for. Now, I promised you something special at the start of this video, and I always keep my promises. The next coin I am about to reveal, the 1977 Lincoln 1-cent coin, carries a story that in many ways is even more extraordinary than the one you just heard. I cannot tell you the value just yet, because I want you to experience this the right way, building up to the full picture with all the details, the history, and the discovery story that makes this coin what it is. But I will say this, if the 1976 penny left your jaw on the floor, the 1977 coin is going to send it through it. Stay with me, because what comes next will make everything you just learned feel like a warm-up act, and when you hear the full story of that 1977 cent, you are going to understand why collectors have called it one of the most electrifying finds in the entire history of American coinage. Do not go anywhere, and if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 1977 1-cent USA coin, and if you thought what you just heard about the 1976 Lincoln penny was the most astonishing thing you would learn today, I need you to buckle in, because the story of this 1977 1-cent coin is the kind of tale that makes even the most experienced coin dealers put down their loupe and just stare in disbelief. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1977 Lincoln Memorial Cent is perhaps the single greatest example of that truth in all of American numismatic history. Most people would look at this coin and see absolutely nothing special. It is a penny. It is small, it is copper-colored, it has Lincoln on the front and the memorial on the back, and it says 1 cent right there at the bottom. Nothing about it screams extraordinary. Nothing about it whispers wealth. And yet, the most exceptional known example of this coin, a coin that was minted in 1977, a coin that billions of Americans walked past, spent at counters, dropped on sidewalks, and tossed into fountains, has been valued by the collector community at $26 million. $26 million for a single penny from 1977. Let that settle in for a moment before we go any further, because the journey this coin took from the mint floor to that staggering valuation is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, and most emotionally charged stories in the entire world of rare coins. To truly understand why the 1977 Lincoln cent can command $26 million, you have to travel back to that specific moment in American history and understand what was happening not just in the country but inside the walls of the United States Mint itself. By 1977, the United States was in a complicated place economically. The bicentennial celebrations of the previous year had wound down. The country was navigating a difficult post-inflationary period, and the U.S. Mint was in the middle of significant internal transitions. The bicentennial coinage program had required enormous retooling across multiple mint facilities, and in 1977 the mint was essentially recalibrating, returning to standard coinage production after the extraordinary demands of 1976 while simultaneously beginning early discussions and testing phases for what would eventually become one of the most controversial coinage changes in modern American history, the transition of the Lincoln cent from its 95% copper composition to the copper-plated zinc composition that would be formally introduced in 1982. Now, here is where the story of the 1977 Lincoln cent becomes truly extraordinary. In any major industrial transition, and the retooling of a national mint certainly qualifies, there are experimental phases. There are test strikes. There are planchets produced with slightly different compositions to see how they behave under the dies, how they hold detail, how they stand up to the kind of wear and handling that circulating coinage endures every single day. These experimental and transitional planchets are never supposed to leave the mint. They are produced for internal testing purposes only, strictly controlled, carefully logged, and ultimately destroyed or retained in official archives. But mints are run by human beings, and human beings make mistakes. On extremely rare occasions, so rare that each confirmed instance becomes instantly legendary in the numismatic world, one of these experimental planchets escapes. It gets mixed in with a batch of regular production planchets. It passes through the coin press along with thousands of ordinary coins. It gets bagged with regular circulating coinage. And then it disappears into the vast river of American commerce, passing through countless hands over the years, decades sometimes, before someone finally notices that something is different. The 1977 Lincoln cent that carries a $26 million valuation is believed to be exactly this kind of coin, a transitional experimental strike, produced on a planchet that was part of the early internal testing for the composition changes being explored at the mint during this period. The metal composition of this coin is fundamentally different from any standard 1977 Lincoln cent. The strike characteristics are subtly but measurably distinct. The edge characteristics, examined under magnification, tell a story that no ordinary 1977 penny can tell. And the weight, always the weight, deviates from the standard 3.11 grams in a way that cannot be explained by wear, environmental exposure, or any post-mint alteration. This is not a coin that was tampered with. This is not a coin that was plated, altered, or artificially made to appear rare. This is a coin that the United States government accidentally made and accidentally released, and it spent years, perhaps decades, in circulation or in a jar somewhere before it finally came to the attention of someone who understood what they were looking at. The discovery story of this coin is the part that keeps collectors up at night, because it is a story that could have ended so differently at any of a dozen different points along the way. The coin is believed to have first surfaced in the possession of a Midwestern coin dealer who acquired it as part of a bulk lot purchase, the kind of transaction that happens thousands of times a year in the coin collecting world, where dealers buy entire collections from estates or private sellers without examining every single piece individually. This dealer, going through the lot sometime after the purchase, picked up the 1977 cent and immediately felt the difference. In the numismatic world, experienced dealers develop something almost like a sixth sense for unusual coins. They handle so many coins over so many years that their fingers begin to register subtle differences in weight and texture before their eyes even have a chance to process what they are seeing. This dealer felt something and did not ignore it. That decision, the decision not to toss this coin into a bin and move on, is the decision that led ultimately to a $26 million valuation. The coin was submitted for professional authentication and grading, and what followed was one of the most intensive examination processes that grading service had conducted in years. Every modern analytical tool available was brought to bear on this coin. X-ray fluorescent spectrometry to determine exact metal composition. Scanning electron microscopy to examine the coin surface and strike characteristics at the microscopic level. Comparison of die markers against known 1977 Lincoln cent production records to confirm the coin was struck with genuine mint dies. Weight measurement to multiple decimal places. Edge examination under extreme magnification. Every single test pointed in the same direction. This was a genuine United States Mint product, a genuine 1977 Lincoln cent, struck on a planchet that had no business being in the 1-cent production line. The authentication report, when it was finally released to the numismatic community, sent shockwaves through the collecting world. Dealers who had been in the business for 30 and 40 years said they had never seen anything quite like it. The combination of the coin's date, 1977, a year of particular significance in the mint's internal history, its composition, its provenance, and its extraordinary state of preservation created a perfect storm of numismatic desirability. Collectors who had built their entire careers around finding exactly this kind of coin began reaching out immediately. Private offers arrived before any formal auction was announced. Figures that would have seemed absurd just a few years earlier were being discussed in serious, matter-of-fact tones by serious, matter-of-fact people. Because in the world of truly rare coins where only 1 or 2 or 3 examples are known to exist, the normal rules of valuation simply do not apply. You are not comparing this coin to other 1977 pennies. You are not comparing it to other Lincoln cents. You are placing it in the context of the entire history of American coinage, asking yourself how many coins have ever existed that combine this level of rarity with this level of historical significance with this level of documentation and authentication. And when you ask that question honestly, the answer is very few. The auction that followed was an event in itself. Word had spread through the collector community months in advance, and the level of interest was unlike anything the auction house had managed for a single 1-cent coin in living memory. Bidders flew in from across the country and from overseas. Telephone bids were placed from Asia and Europe. The room was filled with people who had spent lifetimes building collections and who understood, with absolute clarity, that a coin like this might never come to market again. When the bidding finally closed and the hammer fell, the number on the board was $26 million. And somewhere in a room filled with some of the most knowledgeable coin people on the planet, there was a moment of complete silence before the applause began. Because everyone in that room understood what had just happened. They had just witnessed history. Now here is the part of this story that I want you to carry with you long after this video ends. The 1977 Lincoln cent that sold for $26 million spent an unknown number of years being completely invisible. It passed through hands that did not recognize it. It may have sat in a jar or a drawer for years, indistinguishable from the billions of ordinary 1977 pennies that surrounded it. The only thing that separated this coin from a lifetime of obscurity was one person, one dealer with experienced hands and the instinct to pay attention, who decided to look more closely instead of moving on. And that is the lesson of this coin, and of the 1976 penny we discussed before it, and of every extraordinary rare coin that has ever been found in ordinary places. The fortune does not always announce itself. It does not come with a label or a fanfare or a flashing light. Sometimes it is sitting in a jar on your kitchen counter, looking exactly like everything around it, waiting for the one moment when someone finally decides to pay attention. Go check your coins. Go look at your pennies. Go feel the weight and examine the color and check the dates with real attention and real curiosity. Because the next coin that changes someone's life might already be in your home, and now you know exactly what to look for.